The gleaming transport ship docked at Harmony Station with barely a whisper, its advanced engines designed to minimize disturbance to the delicate diplomatic balance maintained aboard the facility. Alex pressed his face against the small porthole, watching as the massive structure grew larger in his view. The station rotated slowly, its multiple rings creating artificial gravity for dozens of different species, each with their own environmental requirements. Dr. Rylith adjusted her crystalline limbs nervously as she reviewed the incoming student manifest. Her forearms moved in precise patterns, a habit her species had developed over millennia of careful, methodical research. The Altarians had built their entire civilization on the principle of cautious advancement, never taking unnecessary risks, always analyzing every variable before proceeding. Another human exchange student, she murmured to Professor Gorvac, whose massive rocky frame cast shadows across the docking bay control panel. The psychological profiles are concerning. These creatures seem to lack proper fear responses. Their homeworld classification alone should have disqualified them from the program. Professor Gorvac rumbled in agreement, his geological features shifting slightly to express mild concern. The Brechnian had overseen hundreds of exchange students over the decades, but none from worlds classified as Class 7 dangerous. The fact that humans had somehow achieved interstellar travel despite originating from such a hostile environment puzzled the entire academic community. Alex stepped through the airlock with a grin that immediately set several alien faculty members on edge. He carried only a simple backpack, no environmental suit, no protective gear, no security escort. The other students arriving that day had brought entire support teams and enough safety equipment to survive atmospheric breaches. "This place is incredible," Alex said to no one in particular, his voice carrying clearly through the station's universal translation system. He reached out to touch the bioluminescent wall panels, ignoring the warning signs posted in 17 different languages. "Is this some kind of living architecture? The patterns keep changing." Dr. Rylith's translator device buzzed frantically as it tried to process the human's complete lack of caution. Several other faculty members moved closer, their various species expressions of concern creating a rainbow of worried alien features. "Student Alex Chen," Dr. Rylith called out, her voice creating harmonic frequencies that most species found soothing. "I am Dr. Rylith, head of the Xenobiology Department. Please refrain from physical contact with unknown surfaces until proper safety protocols can be established." Alex turned toward her with obvious excitement rather than the respectful distance most students maintained. "Dr. Rylith, amazing to meet you. I've read about Altarian crystalline architecture in my preparatory studies. Is it true that your buildings actually grow rather than being constructed?" The casual way Alex approached the group of alien faculty sent ripples of unease through the gathered beings. Most species maintained careful social distances, especially during first meetings. Alex seemed completely unaware that his direct approach was triggering defensive postures in half the faculty present. "Yes, well," Dr. Rylith stammered, her translucent features flickering with stress patterns. "Perhaps we should proceed to orientation. Your living quarters have been prepared in the human-compatible section of the station." As they moved through the corridors, Alex's constant commentary and questions created an atmosphere of barely controlled panic among his guides. He stopped frequently to examine architectural features, asked detailed questions about species he passed in the hallways, and showed particular interest in the station's security systems. "Those look like some serious blast doors," he observed, running his hand along an emergency bulkhead. "What kind of threats do you typically prepare for out here? Deep space can be pretty unpredictable." Right, Professor Gorvac's rocky exterior actually developed small stress fractures. The blast doors are merely precautionary measures. Young human. The galaxy contains many phenomena that require proper containment protocols. Containment protocols, Alex repeated thoughtfully. Makes sense, I guess. When you're dealing with unknown variables, you need to be ready for anything that's actually pretty exciting. The word exciting caused Dr. Rylith to stop walking entirely. Her species had no concept that aligned with finding dangerous unknowns exciting rather than thrilling. The unknown represented potential threats to be carefully analyzed and neutralized before engagement. The real crisis began during the mandatory species introduction ceremony. Each exchange student was required to present their homeworld's most notable fauna to help other species understand their evolutionary background. The ceremony took place in the station's largest amphitheater, with environmental controls adjusted to accommodate all attending species. The Altarian student presented their homeworld's floating crystal gardens, describing how these mineral formations drifted through their planet's dense atmosphere, creating beautiful but harmless light displays. The Brechnian representative showed holograms of their world's tree shepherds, massive but gentle creatures that helped maintain their planet's forest ecosystems. When Alex's turn arrived, he activated his presentation display with obvious enthusiasm. "Earth has some really incredible biodiversity," he began, as images of various terrestrial creatures began cycling through the holographic projector. "This is a great white shark, one of our ocean's apex predators, can smell blood from several kilometers away, and has been basically unchanged for millions of years. Perfect evolutionary design." The amphitheater fell completely silent. Several species' environmental suits began flashing warning indicators as their occupants' stress levels spiked. Dr. Ryleth's crystalline features went completely dark, a sign of extreme distress in her species, and, "This beauty is a polar bear," Alex continued, apparently oblivious to the growing panic around him. "Massive land predator, perfectly adapted for Arctic hunting, can weigh up to 800 kilograms of pure muscle and claws, lives in some of the harshest conditions on our planet." Professor Gorvak's geological features began developing larger cracks. The Brechnians had never encountered predators of any significant size on their homeworld. The concept of creatures that hunted other sentient beings was purely theoretical to them. "Oh, and here's my personal favorite," Alex said, his grin growing wider. "The honey badger. Probably pound for pound the most fearless creature on Earth, takes on animals 10 times its size. Immune to most venoms, has been known to fight off entire packs of larger predators just for fun." At the phrase "just for fun," 3 faculty members simultaneously activated their emergency beacon systems. Dr. Ryleth made a sound that her translator couldn't process, while Professor Gorvak's stress fractures spread across his entire torso. "These creatures," Dr. Ryleth managed to whisper, "they share your homeworld. You coexist with such predators." "Well, yeah," Alex replied, seeming genuinely puzzled by the question. "I mean, we don't exactly hang out with them, but they're part of Earth's ecosystem. Pretty amazing what evolution can produce when survival pressure gets intense, right?" The assembled alien faculty realized with growing horror that they weren't just dealing with a student from a dangerous world. They were hosting a representative of a species that had evolved alongside creatures that would be classified as military-grade threats on most civilized worlds, and Alex thought this was perfectly normal. Emergency klaxons screamed through every corridor of Harmony Station as red warning lights bathed the normally peaceful academic facility in harsh, pulsing illumination. The sound that had awakened Alex from his afternoon study session wasn't the gentle chime system used for routine announcements. This was the bone-deep wailing reserved for catastrophic system failures. 3 levels below, in the advanced xenobiology laboratory, Professor Vance stood frozen before a wall of shattered containment cells. The transport ship carrying specimens for the semester's field study program had suffered a direct meteor strike just minutes after docking debris from the impact had punctured 17 different biocontainment chambers simultaneously, releasing creatures that were never meant to exist in the same environment. Evacuation Protocol 7 is now in effect. The station's artificial intelligence announced through every speaker system, "All personnel proceed immediately to designated safe zones." "This is not a drill." Alex grabbed his tablet and headed toward the corridor, where he found streams of panicked alien students and faculty rushing toward the emergency shelters. Most wore full environmental suits despite being in pressurized areas, and many traveled in tight groups surrounded by their species' security. Details Dr. Ryleth appeared around the corner, her crystalline features flashing rapid distress patterns that Alex had learned to recognize over the past 3 weeks. "Alex, you must reach the human quarters immediately. The emergency bunkers have been sealed and pressurized for extended isolation." "What's the situation?" Alex asked, falling into step beside the agitated Altarian. The announcements aren't giving much detail. Professor Gorvak's massive form emerged from a side passage, his rocky exterior covered in stress fractures that hadn't been there that morning. Containment failure in the specimen transport. Multiple dangerous organisms have been released into the station's general population areas. Alex felt a familiar surge of curiosity rather than the fear response his alien companions seemed to expect. What kind of organisms are we talking about? Bacterial contamination, toxic atmospheric releases, or actual creature escapes? The way both faculty members stopped walking told Alex he had asked exactly the wrong question from their perspective. Dr. Ryleth's harmonic communication devices created sounds that the universal translator simply rendered as distressed static creatures. Professor Gorvak rumbled, his geological features shifting into what Alex had learned was the Breshnian equivalent of barely controlled panic, including a Vrex from the Skaros system. Alex had read about the Skaros system during his preparation for the exchange program. The entire star cluster was classified as a deathworld zone, containing planets where evolution had produced some of the galaxy's most efficient predators. A Vrex got it. So we're dealing with an apex predator from a Class 9 hostile environment. How big are we talking? 8 feet tall, Dr. Ryleth whispered, as if speaking too loudly might summon the creature. Razor claws, acidic saliva, intelligence approaching sentience. The academic databases indicate it has never been successfully contained without lethal military intervention. Rather than showing appropriate terror, Alex's expression shifted to something that Dr. Ryleth was beginning to recognize as dangerous human interest. Intelligence approaching sentience. That's fascinating. So it's not just operating on predatory instinct, it's actually thinking through its situation, adapting to new environments. Professor Gorvak's stress fractures deepened. The protocols require complete sector evacuation until military containment specialists can arrive from the nearest garrison. That will require 6 standard days minimum. 6 days, Alex repeated thoughtfully. That's a long time for an intelligent predator to be loose in an unfamiliar environment. It's probably already stressed from the transport accident, disoriented by the artificial atmosphere, and potentially becoming more aggressive as it tries to establish territorial control. The casual way Alex analyzed the situation sent both alien faculty members into new levels of distress. Most species would be calculating escape routes and shelter options. Instead, this human was performing behavioral analysis on a creature that could kill them all. The creature has been tracked to the hydroponic section, Dr. Ryleth explained as they continued toward the emergency bunkers. Environmental sensors show it has taken up residence among the cultivation units. The area has been sealed, but the blast doors won't contain it indefinitely. Alex stopped walking, entirely causing both aliens to turn back toward him with expressions of confusion. Wait, the hydroponics bay. That's actually perfect. It'll have access to water. The temperature will be stable, and there's plenty of space for a large predator to move around without feeling cornered. Perfect, Professor Gorvak echoed in disbelief. How is any aspect of this situation perfect? Well, if you think about it, from the Vrex's perspective, Alex continued, his academic excitement building despite the emergency situation around them. It's been traumatically removed from its natural habitat, probably injured in the meteor strike, and dumped into a completely alien environment. The hydroponics bay provides the closest thing to natural conditions available on the station. Dr. Ryleth's crystalline features flickered through patterns Alex had never seen before. You are analyzing. This as if the creature deserves sympathy rather than containment. Both. Actually, Alex replied. Look, we have 6 days before military intervention arrives. That means 6 days of an increasingly stressed and potentially aggressive predator roaming the station. Or we could try a different approach. The suggestion hung in the air between them as emergency personnel continued rushing past toward the sealed bunkers. Professor Gorvak's geological form creaked as he processed what Alex might be implying. Alternative approach, Dr. Ryleth repeated slowly. What alternative could possibly exist for containing a creature that has killed trained hunters on its homeworld? Alex's expression shifted to the kind of determined curiosity that his alien instructors were learning, to fear, maybe nobody's tried actually communicating with it yet. Communicating? Professor Gorvak's voice created harmonic frequencies that suggested his species' equivalent of hysterical laughter, with a creature classified as a military-grade threat. It's intelligent, right? Alex pressed on. And it's stuck. In a situation it doesn't understand, surrounded by creatures and technology it's never encountered. If I were in its position, I'd probably be pretty scared and aggressive too. But what if someone approached it calmly, without threats, just trying to establish basic communication? Dr. Rylith's entire crystalline structure went completely transparent, a stress response. Alex. Had never witnessed before, you are suggesting direct contact with the Vrex. I'm suggesting, Alex said carefully, that we might have an unprecedented opportunity here. How often does anyone get the chance to study the behavior of a Skaro system predator in a controlled environment? This could revolutionize our understanding of deathworld evolution. The absolute silence that followed Alex's suggestion was broken only by the continuing wail of the emergency klaxons and the sound of the last stragglers rushing toward the bunkers. Both alien faculty members stared at Alex as if he had suggested juggling antimatter while riding a comet. The protocols, Professor Gorvak managed to say, strictly forbid any approach that might escalate the threat level. But what if it doesn't escalate? Alex countered. What if careful, respectful contact actually reduces the threat? What if the Vrex is just as interested in avoiding conflict as we are, once it understands the situation? Dr. Rylith made the harmonic equivalent of a whimper. The statistical probability of successful communication without casualties approaches 0 according to every xenobiology model, Alex grinned. And both alien faculty members recognized the expression that had been causing them stress for weeks. Then we'd be making history, wouldn't we? As if summoned by their conversation, Station Commander Ulrichs appeared at the end of the corridor, his insectoid features arranged in patterns of grim determination. Faculty members, you should be in the emergency bunkers. The creature has begun testing the containment barriers. It may breach the sealed section within hours. Alex stepped forward before either of his companions could respond. Commander, I'd like to request permission to attempt peaceful contact with the Vrex. The silence that followed was so complete that even the emergency klaxons seemed to pause. The observation deck overlooking the hydroponics bay buzzed with nervous energy, as every available faculty member crowded around the reinforced viewing panels. Alex stood calmly in the preparation chamber, checking the simple meal pack he had, assembled while dozens of alien academics monitored his vital signs and argued about the unprecedented situation developing below station. Commander Ulrichs had made the decision with cold mathematical logic. 6 days of waiting for military intervention, while an increasingly agitated apex predator roamed the station, posed greater statistical risk than allowing one human student to attempt contact. The fact that every xenobiology expert on the station considered this approach suicidal had been noted and officially ignored. His stress hormone levels are completely abnormal, Dr. Rylith observed, her 4 crystalline arms moving in agitated patterns as she studied Alex's biometric readouts. Any normal sentient being should be experiencing overwhelming fear responses. His cardiovascular system should be in emergency preparation mode. Professor Gorvak leaned his massive frame against the observation panel, stress fractures covering his rocky exterior like a geological roadmap. Perhaps humans simply process threat assessment differently than other species. Their evolutionary background suggests constant exposure to predatory environments. Through the communication system, they could hear Alex humming quietly to himself as he finished his preparations. The sound sent ripples of disbelief through the assembled faculty. Most species would be engaging in final ritual preparations or emergency psychological conditioning. All right, everyone. Alex's voice came through the speakers with cheerful confidence. I'm heading in now. Remember, no sudden movements from the observation area, no emergency signals unless I specifically request help. We want to keep this as calm and non-threatening as possible. The blast door separating the preparation chamber from the hydroponics bay cycled open with a soft hiss. Alex stepped through carrying nothing but his meal pack and a basic recording tablet. No weapons, No protective gear, no emergency beacon. The collective stress levels of every observer spiked simultaneously. The hydroponics bay stretched out before him like an artificial forest of cultivation units, water recycling systems, and atmospheric processors. The lighting was dim, designed to simulate natural growing conditions rather than provide security illumination. Perfect environment for a predator that had evolved in low-light conditions. Alex found a clear space in the center of the bay and sat down cross-legged, placing his meal pack on the ground beside him. "Hi there," he said conversationally, his voice carrying clearly through the humid air. "I'm Alex. I figured you might be hungry, so I brought lunch for several minutes." Nothing happened. The faculty observers held their collective breath as Alex continued unpacking his simple meal, talking quietly about the food he had brought and how the station's synthesizers had attempted to match the nutritional requirements of a Scaro system predator. Then the shadows moved. The Vrex emerged from behind a massive water processing unit with the fluid grace of a creature perfectly designed for hunting. Its 8-foot frame moved silently despite its size, razor-sharp claws extending slightly as it studied this small, strange being that showed no fear response whatsoever. Dr. Rylith's crystalline features went completely dark. It's positioning for an attack. The posture indicates preparation for a killing strike. But Alex seemed to interpret the creature's approach differently. "You're probably pretty confused right now, aren't you?" he said calmly, still seated and showing no intention of fleeing. "New environment, strange smells, artificial atmosphere can't be easy for someone used to natural hunting grounds." The Vrex stopped approximately 10 feet away, its head tilting slightly as it processed Alex's calm vocalizations. The creature's acidic saliva dripped steadily, but its claws retracted partially, suggesting confusion rather than immediate aggression. "I brought protein synthesized to match your dietary requirements," Alex continued, holding up a portion of his meal pack. "The computer systems have pretty detailed biological information about your species. Not sure how accurate the flavor profile is, but the nutritional content should be compatible." What happened next caused 3 faculty members to faint and Dr. Rylith to lose her translucent coloring entirely. Alex tossed a piece of synthesized protein toward the Vrex, not as bait or distraction, but as a genuine offering. The creature caught the food with reflexes that were almost too fast for the observation cameras to track. It examined the offering carefully, its nostrils flaring as it analyzed the chemical composition. Then impossibly it consumed the protein while maintaining visual contact with Alex. "Good stuff, right?" Alex asked, as if he were having lunch with a colleague rather than offering food to a creature that could kill him in seconds. "The station's biosynthesizers are pretty impressive once you figure out how to program them properly." Over the next hour, the impossible continued to unfold. Alex gradually moved closer to the Vrex, sharing his meal and maintaining a steady stream of calm conversation. The creature's posture shifted from predatory alertness to something approaching curiosity. It began responding to Alex's voice with low harmonic sounds that suggested complex communication rather than simple threat displays. "It's learning," Professor Gorvak rumbled in amazement. "The creature is actually adapting its communication patterns to match the human's vocal frequencies." Dr. Rylith's monitoring equipment registered readings she had never encountered before. Alex's stress levels remain stable, but his brain activity suggests intense cognitive processing. He's analyzing the creature's responses and adjusting his approach in real time. This is unprecedented interspecies communication, developing spontaneously. The breakthrough came when Alex carefully extended his hand toward the Vrex, palm up and moving slowly. The creature studied the gesture before gently touching Alex's hand with one massive claw, careful not to break the skin. "You're incredibly intelligent, aren't you?" Alex said softly. "All those academic reports about mindless killing machines got it completely wrong. You're thinking, processing, trying to understand this situation just like I am." The Vrex made a complex series of harmonic sounds that Alex's recording equipment captured for later analysis. The creature's body language had transformed from predatory threat to something approaching social interaction. "I'm calling him Rex," Alex announced to the observation deck. causing several faculty members to make their species equivalent of choking sounds. He's showing clear signs of higher intelligence and adaptive problem-solving. Plus, he hasn't tried to kill me yet, which I'm taking as a positive sign. By the end of the session, Alex was sitting within arm's reach of the Rex, examining the creature's claw structure, while Rex investigated Alex's recording tablet with obvious curiosity. Both beings seemed genuinely interested in understanding each other, rather than viewing the interaction as predator versus prey. "This changes everything," Dr. Rylith whispered as Alex concluded his first session and prepared to leave the hydroponics bay. "If Deathworld predators are capable of this level of social interaction, we need to completely revise our understanding of hostile environment evolution." Alex waved goodbye to Rex, who responded with what could only be described as a farewell gesture of his own. "Same time tomorrow," Alex promised. "Maybe I'll bring some of those protein variants you seemed interested in." As Alex exited the hydroponics bay and the blast doors sealed behind him, the assembled faculty stared at each other in stunned silence. They had just witnessed the impossible, successful, peaceful contact with one of the galaxy's most feared predators, and the human responsible seemed to think it was the most natural thing in the world. News of Alex's breakthrough with Rex spread through academic channels faster than anyone had anticipated. Within days, researchers from across the galaxy were requesting permission to observe the unprecedented collaboration between human and Vrex. The implications for xenobiology, psychology, and interspecies relations were staggering. Dr. Rylith found herself frantically updating research protocols that had remained unchanged for centuries. "The behavioral data is completely inconsistent with every model we've developed for Deathworld species," she explained to a gathering of department heads from multiple star systems. "Rex demonstrates problem-solving capabilities that rival most sentient species, along with social behaviors we thought impossible for apex predators." The evidence was undeniable. Alex's daily sessions with Rex had evolved from simple communication attempts to complex collaborative exercises. The pair had developed their own hybrid language, combining human vocalizations with the Rex's harmonic sound patterns. Rex had learned to operate basic equipment, solve multi-step puzzles, and even demonstrate what appeared to be humor. Today's exercise involved spatial reasoning, Alex reported to the assembled faculty during his weekly presentation. "I gave Rex a series of increasingly complex maze problems. Both physical and holographic, he solved every one. But what's really interesting is that his solutions were often more efficient than the intended pathways. He's not just following learned behaviors, he's innovating." Professor Gorvak, whose stress fractures had finally begun to heal, asked the question that haunted everyone observing the collaboration. "But how do you maintain safety protocols? The creature is still physically capable of causing massive damage. Your species should be triggering every possible fear response." Alex considered this seriously, while Rex, who had been allowed into the presentation chamber, examined a holographic star chart with obvious fascination. "I mean, Rex could definitely hurt me if he wanted to. But so could a lot of things back on Earth. Gravity, weather systems, other humans. The key is understanding motivation and building trust." "Trust," Dr. Rylith repeated, her crystalline features flickering with confused patterns. "You trust a predator from a Class 9 hostile environment. I trust that Rex is intelligent enough to understand that cooperation benefits both of us," Alex clarified. "He gets regular meals, environmental enrichment, social interaction, and mental stimulation. I get insights into problem-solving approaches that evolved under extreme survival pressure. It's mutually beneficial." The academic community struggled to process this perspective. Most galactic civilizations had developed through careful risk avoidance and controlled environmental management. The idea of deliberately engaging with dangerous unknowns for potential benefits challenged fundamental assumptions about intelligent behavior. Rex seemed to understand that he was the subject of discussion, approaching the presentation area with what Alex had learned to recognize as his curious about new information posture. The assembled alien faculty still maintained respectful distances, but several had begun taking detailed observational notes, rather than preparing to flee. The collaboration has produced practical applications as well, Alex continued, gesturing for Rex to join him at the presentation console. Rex's approach to environmental analysis has helped us optimize the station's atmospheric recycling systems. His hunting instincts translate surprisingly well to resource management problems. To demonstrate, Alex activated a complex simulation showing resource distribution across multiple habitat zones. Rex studied the display for several minutes before using his claws to manipulate the holographic interface, indicating optimal pathways for energy distribution that hadn't occurred to the station's engineering teams. His solution reduces energy waste by 18%, while improving environmental stability across all zones, Alex explained as the assembled faculty watched in amazement. Rex thinks in terms of ecosystem balance rather than isolated systems. It's a perspective that only comes from evolving in environments where every resource matters for survival, Dr. Rylith's monitoring equipment registered readings that suggested her entire worldview was being restructured in real time. The cognitive approaches are fundamentally different from our academic models. Rex processes information holistically rather than through linear analysis. This could revolutionize our approach to complex problem solving. The breakthrough that truly changed everything came during a joint session focused on communication development. Alex had been working with Rex to create visual symbols that could represent complex concepts, essentially developing a written language that both species could use. Show them the philosophy discussion, Alex suggested to Rex, who immediately began creating a series of intricate symbols on the holographic interface. The patterns were beautiful, combining geometric precision with flowing organic curves that seemed to capture movement and meaning simultaneously. Rex has been trying to explain how his species understands time and causality. Alex translated as Rex continued adding symbols to his display. It's completely different from linear temporal concepts most galactic species, including humans. Think of time as sequential. Rex's people perceive it more like a landscape where past, present, and future exist simultaneously. The implications sent shockwaves through the academic community. If deathworld species had developed philosophical frameworks that differed so radically from galactic standard models, how much knowledge had been lost through fear-based avoidance rather than scholarly engagement? Professor Gorvak's geological features shifted into patterns of wonder rather than stress. The applications for temporal mechanics research alone could advance our understanding by centuries. We've been approaching these problems with fundamentally limited perspectives. Rex seemed pleased by the positive response, adding more symbols to his display that Alex interpreted as concepts related to consciousness, environmental interaction, and what could only be described as deathworld aesthetics. The beauty of the symbolic language was undeniable, combining mathematical precision with artistic expression. The most important thing, Alex emphasized, is that Rex isn't just sharing information, he's teaching. We've developed a genuine educational partnership where both of us learn from each other's approaches to understanding the universe. Dr. Rylith approached the display more closely than she had ever dared, her crystalline features reflecting the flowing patterns of Rex's symbolic language. This could fundamentally change how we approach interspecies relations. If peaceful collaboration is possible with apex predators from deathworlds, what other opportunities have we missed through excessive caution? The session concluded with Rex demonstrating his latest innovation, a complex, three-dimensional puzzle that required both spatial reasoning and temporal planning to solve. He had designed it specifically to challenge Alex's problem-solving approaches, while incorporating elements that showcased his own cognitive strengths. Tomorrow we're going to try collaborative equipment design, Alex announced as Rex carefully packed away his symbolic interface tools. Rex has some ideas about improving the station's defensive systems, and I want to see how human engineering approaches might complement deathworld survival strategies. As the faculty filed out of the presentation chamber, their conversations buzzed with excited speculation about research applications, collaboration possibilities, and the complete revolution in academic thinking that Alex and Rex had initiated. Several species that had never worked together were Already discussing joint research projects inspired by the unlikely partnership, Rex and Alex remained in the chamber, reviewing the day's progress and planning their next collaborative experiment. The site had become familiar around Harmony Station. Human and apex predator working side by side, each bringing unique strengths to challenges that neither could solve alone. "You know what's funny?" Alex said to Rex as they prepared to leave. "6 months ago, nobody would have believed this was possible. Now we're getting research proposals from species who want to establish similar partnerships with other deathworld creatures." Rex's response, a complex harmonic pattern that Alex had learned, meant something like positive change through understanding, echoed through the chamber. The age of cautious, segregated academic research was ending in its place. A new era of bold, collaborative investigation was beginning, led by an unlikely partnership that had turned a containment crisis into a revolution in interspecies relations. The announcement chamber of the Galactic Academic Council buzzed with anticipation as representatives from 47 different species gathered to witness the formal presentation of what had become known throughout academic circles as the Harmony Station Protocol. Alex stood at the center of the chamber alongside Rex, whose presence no longer triggered emergency responses from the assembled delegates. Chancellor Vorthak, whose species had established the original academic exchange programs centuries earlier, called the session to order with ceremonial harmonic tones that Rex had learned to appreciate. "We gathered today to evaluate revolutionary changes to interspecies research protocols based on unprecedented collaborative achievements between human student Alex Chen and Scaro system predator, designated Rex." 6 months had transformed not just Alex and Rex, but the entire concept of what academic collaboration could achieve. Their partnership had produced breakthrough research in 17 different fields, from environmental engineering to consciousness studies. The data was impossible to ignore, even for species whose entire civilizations were built on cautious risk management. The traditional separation protocols for dangerous species were established to prevent casualties and maintain research integrity. Dr. Rylith explained to the council, her crystalline features now displaying confident patterns rather than the stress responses that had characterized their early interactions. However, our observations suggest that these protocols may have prevented access to valuable knowledge rather than protecting academic interests. Alex gestured to the holographic displays surrounding the chamber, showing the collaborative projects he and Rex had completed. "What we've discovered is that deathworld species don't just survive hostile environments. They develop cognitive approaches that can solve problems other species can't even conceptualize." Rex's understanding of complex systems comes from millions of years of evolution, where failing to see connections meant extinction. Rex approached one of the displays, his movements now familiar and comfortable around alien technology. The assembled delegates watched with fascination rather than fear as the massive predator began manipulating holographic interfaces to demonstrate his latest theoretical framework. "Rex has been developing what we're calling survival-based mathematics," Alex continued, translating as Rex created increasingly complex equations that seemed to blend physics, biology, and philosophy. His people's approach to understanding reality is based on dynamic balance rather than static analysis. Every equation accounts for environmental change, predator-prey relationships, and resource fluctuation simultaneously. Professor Gorvak, now serving as co-director of the Interspecies Collaboration Initiative, presented the practical applications. "Rex's mathematical approaches have improved our space navigation algorithms by 30%, optimized resource distribution across 12 different habitat types, and provided new models for predicting environmental stability in hostile regions." The evidence was overwhelming, but the cultural implications were even more significant. Species that had maintained careful isolation for millennia were requesting permission to establish similar partnerships. The Altarians wanted to work with intelligent predators from ice worlds, while the Brechnians had begun preliminary contact with creatures from high-gravity environments. "The key insight," Alex explained as Rex continued his mathematical demonstration, "is that intelligence takes many forms. Species that evolve under extreme pressure develop cognitive tools that complement rather than compete with traditional academic approaches. We're not replacing careful analysis with reckless engagement. We're adding new perspectives to our problem-solving toolkit. Chancellor Vorthak's harmonic tones shifted to patterns of cautious approval. The Council acknowledges the significant advances produced by this collaboration. However, concerns remain about expanding such protocols to other dangerous species. How do you ensure safety while maintaining the benefits of unrestricted interaction? Rex seemed to understand the question, creating a series of visual symbols that Alex had learned to interpret as complex communication concepts. Rex suggests that the danger comes from misunderstanding, not from the creatures themselves. Alex translated, most so-called aggressive species are actually responding to perceived threats. When you approach with genuine curiosity rather than defensive fear, the interaction dynamics change completely. To demonstrate, Rex activated a holographic scenario showing various first contact situations. He manipulated the display to show how different approach strategies produced different outcomes, with collaborative approaches consistently resulting in positive interactions, while defensive strategies escalated to conflict. Dr. Rylith added her own analysis to the presentation. Our psychological monitoring of Alex throughout this partnership shows that humans process threat assessment differently than most galactic species. Rather than avoiding dangerous unknowns, they seem motivated to understand and engage with them. This cognitive difference appears to be crucial for successful interspecies collaboration. The applications extend far beyond academic research, Alex continued, as Rex began displaying examples of practical innovations their partnership had produced. Rex's insights into environmental adaptation have helped us design better life support systems for extreme environments. His understanding of resource optimization has improved efficiency across multiple station operations. The Council members engaged in rapid multi-species discussion, their various communication methods creating a symphony of harmonic tones, crystalline resonances, and geological rumbling. The implications for galactic civilization were staggering. If peaceful collaboration with deathworld species was not only possible but beneficial, centuries of isolation policies would need complete revision. We propose establishing the Harmony Station Protocol as a new standard for interspecies research. Professor Gorvak announced formally, voluntary collaboration between species of different threat classifications, with proper preparation and genuine mutual respect, offers unprecedented opportunities for advancing galactic knowledge, Rex added. His own contribution to the formal proposal, creating an intricate symbol that combined elements from dozens of different species' communication systems. Alex recognized it as Rex's attempt to create a universal symbol for collaborative partnership. Rex calls it the learning together symbol. Alex translated, he's suggesting that it represent partnerships where both species contribute their unique strengths to shared goals, rather than one species studying another as a subject. The vote was unanimous. The Galactic Academic Council formally approved the Harmony Station Protocol, establishing new guidelines for interspecies research partnerships that prioritized collaboration over containment. Within months, Harmony Station became the most sought-after research assignment in the galaxy. Applications flooded in from species who had never before considered working outside their comfort zones. The Crystalline Collective requested partnerships with silicon-based life forms from volcanic worlds. The Ocean Depths Alliance wanted to collaborate with pressure-adapted species from gas giant environments. Alex found himself serving as an unofficial consultant for new partnership programs, helping other species understand the mindset required for successful collaboration with dangerous unknowns. The trick isn't eliminating risk, he explained to a group of nervous Altarian researchers preparing for their first Deathworld partnership. It's understanding that the risk of missing opportunities might be greater than the risk of careful engagement. Rex had become something of a celebrity in academic circles, though he seemed more interested in the intellectual challenges than the attention. His collaborative projects now included partners from 7 different species, each bringing unique perspectives to problems that had puzzled researchers for generations. The mathematics are beautiful, Dr. Rylith observed as she reviewed Rex's latest theoretical framework. He's essentially created a new branch of applied philosophy that treats survival, learning, and environmental harmony as interconnected systems rather than separate disciplines. The transformation of Harmony Station itself reflected the broader changes in galactic academia. The sterile, segregated research facilities had been redesigned to accommodate mixed-species collaboration. Environmental controls now supported multiple atmospheric requirements simultaneously, while common areas were designed to encourage interaction between beings who had previously maintained careful distances. Alex's afternoon research session with Rex had expanded into a multi-species seminar that included students and faculty from a dozen different worlds. The sight would have been unimaginable just months earlier. A human casually discussing complex theoretical concepts with an apex predator while Altarian crystalline beings, Brechnian geological forms, and various other species contributed their own insights. Today's project involves temporal mechanics, Alex announced to the assembled group. Rex has been developing theories about how deathworld species perceive time differently than standard galactic models. We're going to test whether these perception differences can improve our approach to long-term environmental planning. Rex activated a holographic display showing his latest temporal framework. The mathematics were elegant and complex, incorporating variables that traditional models ignored. His approach treated time not as a linear progression, but as a dynamic system where past influences, present conditions, and future possibilities all influenced each other simultaneously. The implications for terraforming projects alone could revolutionize how we approach planetary development, Professor Gorvac noted as he studied Rex's calculations. Instead of imposing environmental changes through brute force engineering, this approach suggests working with existing planetary systems to guide natural evolution. A young Altarian student raised her crystalline appendage tentatively. But how do we verify theories that require such different conceptual frameworks? Our traditional analytical methods may not be sufficient for evaluating deathworld perspectives. Alex grinned, and the entire seminar group had learned to recognize this expression as indicating something exciting was about to happen. That's exactly why we need collaborative partnerships. We can't evaluate Rex's theories using only traditional methods, just like Rex can't develop technological applications using only deathworld approaches. But together, we can create verification systems that neither of us could design alone. The session continued with Rex demonstrating practical applications of his temporal theories. Several engineering problems that had puzzled station technicians for months yielded to solutions that incorporated deathworld survival mathematics. The results were impossible to argue with, even for species whose cultures emphasized extreme caution. As the day's research concluded, Alex and Rex prepared for their evening routine of reviewing progress and planning future experiments. The partnership that had begun as an emergency response to a containment crisis had evolved into something neither of them had anticipated. A genuine friendship based on mutual respect and shared intellectual curiosity. Tomorrow's project should be interesting, Alex said as they walked through corridors now filled with mixed-species research teams. The engineering department wants us to evaluate their new defensive system designs using your survival-based analysis. Rex responded with harmonic patterns that Alex had learned meant enthusiastic agreement, along with suggestions for additional variables the engineers probably hadn't considered. The conversation continued in their hybrid language, combining human vocalizations with Vrex harmonic communication in ways that fascinated linguists throughout the Galaxy Station. Commander Ulrichs appeared in the corridor, his insectoid features arranged in patterns of satisfaction. The latest reports from the Galactic Academic Council indicate that 17 other research facilities are implementing modified versions of the Harmony Station protocol. Your partnership has essentially created a new branch of academia. Not just our partnership, Alex corrected, Rex's insights, the faculty's willingness to adapt, the other students embracing collaborative approaches. Everyone contributed to making this work. The important thing is that we proved peaceful. Cooperation is possible even between species that seem incompatible. Rex added his own commentary, creating visual symbols that represented the concept of multiple perspectives, combining to create better understanding. His artistic abilities had developed alongside his mathematical skills, producing works that captured both the beauty and complexity of interspecies collaboration. "What's next?" Commander Ulrichs asked, though his tone suggested he wasn't entirely sure he wanted to know the answer. Alex and Rex exchanged what had become their standard planning mischief look. "Well," Alex said thoughtfully, "there are some interesting species in the outer spiral that nobody's attempted contact with, yet Rex thinks they might have developed some fascinating approaches to quantum mechanics." The suggestion sent the familiar ripple of excitement and terror through the nearby faculty members. Alex's casual approach to dangerous unknowns had become legendary throughout the station, while Rex's enthusiasm for intellectual challenges had proven to be equally boundless. "Of course you do," Commander Ulrich sighed, though his tone carried affection rather than exasperation. "Just remember to file proper research proposals before attempting contact with any more fascinating species." As Alex and Rex headed toward their shared laboratory space, they passed groups of mixed-species students engaged in collaborative projects that would have been unthinkable before their partnership. The corridors buzzed with excited academic discussion, in dozens of different languages, creating a symphony of interspecies learning. "You know what's amazing?" Alex said, as they settled into their evening routine. 6 months ago, the idea of a human and of Rex working together was completely impossible. Now it's becoming the standard for how academic research should work. Rex's response combined harmonic agreement with visual symbols representing positive change and expanding possibilities. The message was clear. This was just the beginning of what interspecies collaboration could achieve when beings approached each other with curiosity rather than fear. The age of segregated, cautious academia was ending. Throughout the galaxy, research facilities were adapting the Harmony Station protocol, establishing partnerships between species that had never before considered working together. And at the center of this academic revolution sat an unlikely friendship between a human who saw dangerous unknowns as opportunities and a deathworld predator who had always known that survival required understanding rather than isolation.